The fastest way to get started with the data storytelling cards is to download these free printable templates. There is one template for each category, as you can see here. So we have audience, we have context, we have your tale, envisioning the story, and delivering the story. This is a great way to help you to quickly understand how the cards are structured and how you can use them. So with that in mind, let's have a quick look at the first category and the first printable template for audience. So we take audience, take our cards, and what you're going to see here in our template is we have each of the subcategories listed. We have data attitudes, and it describes what cards are included in the data attitudes, data literacy, decision-making types, audience seniority, technical proficiency, the generational factors, and space for 2 psychological factors. We'll get into why that is in a little while. But let's just first start with understanding how we might use these and get you started as quickly as we can. Generally, when we're creating a story, we want to properly understand our audience first. It's the first thing we probably want to do. And to do that, these categories are a great way for us to get started. In general, we usually want to have one card for each area. It's entirely possible and can happen where you might have multiple cards for each of these subcategories. So let's get started with data attitudes. So it's telling me these are cards A2 to A7. So something you can do is just start structuring your cards A2 to A7. If you're not familiar at all with the storytelling cards, this is a good way to start. Just put your stack there and come back to it and make a decision later as you get more comfortable with the cards. You can see this one, A8 to A13. Put your stack there. So on and so forth until you end up with everything completed here. So A14, A17 for decision-making types, and you can go all the way through. I'm not going to do it all, you get the idea. So what you would then end up starting with here is your data attitudes. Depending on your audience, what's their data attitude? Maybe you have some data skeptics. Now, it's possible you have a few types of data attitudes in there, in which case you would just put down 2 cards. Okay, so then you would know the type of attitudes that are within your audience. And you would do similarly with the rest of the cards. So we would start with our data analyst here. Maybe we'll say, okay, the level of data literacy, we have data analyst level, but also we've got a bunch of novices. Just for example, you may just say, you know what, I only have people that are completely new to it, completely new to using data, they're data novices. This is how you would then proceed through it. So let's say decision-making types, they're quite tactical. Right, now of course, as you go through these, you're reading each of the cards, you're reading the tips, and you're understanding your audience much better using this process. So this really is the fastest way to get started. However, I did say there's some nuances here that we may want to consider. So let's take away the cards and have a look at some of the other categories that we have for our printable templates. We've got context, and you'll see here there's repeating of a few of these, right? We've got setting the context, existing trends, but we've got several types of context because there can be a lot. Socioeconomic factors, and then we've got several within values and goals, right? So we've got 2 space for 2 there. Doesn't mean you have to fill them, but they're there so that you can maybe consider some important aspects for values and goals. So that's when you see something repeated, it's either important, there's important concepts in there that maybe there's multiple that you need, or there just might be a lot of cards within that subcategory. Let's go look at another one here. For example, telling the tale, you could look at that. We could look at design principles, and you can see here that we've got 2 spaces for design principles. Again, it's the same sort of thing, right? There's a lot of cards in these subcategories, and so you might want to have multiple different options to place them in. Doesn't mean you have to use them all by any means. For example, you'll see here, chart selection, pick a card from here, and if appropriate, pick another card. So not every single time you need to be picking a card. So you'll notice in these templates, it'll say if appropriate, it's optional. And when it's not, it'll just say pick a card. Finally, we've got our delivery category, and you can see here we've got no repetition. There's a lot of subcategories in this category. We've got 8, and you would just do the very same thing that we've been doing for the audience example. Now, this is the absolute fastest way to get you started and get familiar. Be sure to check out the case study videos so you can also understand the different ways you might want to use this for given scenarios.